Hi, everyone. This is James with a whole bunch of friends here from Ouray, Colorado at the Good People Retreat. Thanks for joining us for the LinkedIn Live. Several of my guests found out that they were going to be on the show moments ago. So thank you so much for agreeing to do that. Kane and I had planned this for a while. I'm excited to stream this live from an event. This is my first time actually doing it at a senior living event. So there's our first foray into that. So let me do a quick intro for my guests. I'm James. Hopefully, if you're watching this, hopefully you already follow me and know who I am. Kane, will you do a quick intro?
My name's Kane Marschall. I'm the president and founder of Good People.
I'm Austin Steele, the Chief Strategy Officer at Journey.
I'm Nicole Page, Senior VP of Sales for DualPath Connected Solutions.
I'm Martha Atwood, Chief People Officer with Sequoia Living.
I love it. Okay, so we've got a exciting conversation here today. So two main things, guys, I want to do was one, we all just had the Good People experience. Some of us have had it more than once, I think. Who's had it multiple times besides Kane? Okay, this is all of our first year then, and this is your second time. So part one of our conversation today is going to be sharing with people what the Good People Retreat is. So I'll share some of my perspective. We'll try to make Kane not talk as much. He doesn't want to talk, so we'll talk a little bit about Good People, but we'll hear from him. And the second thing is I wanted us to have, the reason we scheduled this so close to my session is that I wanted to get an immediate gut reaction to the things that we talked about right now, which really had to do with senior living conferences. I'm calling it the 2.0 of conferences. And just the shifting needs and perspectives and optics around senior living gatherings. So those are the two big things here. Okay, so let's start off with the Good People Retreat. Kane, do you want to share a little bit about how it got started?
Yeah, sure. It got started. I came at this from a business development perspective, and I used to host small gatherings, fishing trips, golf gatherings, and get a handful of people together at a time, and quickly realized that the bonding and the connecting and the relationships is where all the business was taking place. So when it came time for me to start looking for a new place to work, I decided that I was going to start this thing. I was going to name it Good People, and I was going to partner with a handful of organizations that were looking to acquire me for my services. So I started it with those handful of vendor partners and named it Good People. And we've been doing this for 4 years now, and it's really taken off. We're having a good time with it.
Man, I've said the phrase "Good People" about 1,000 times this week, just in real context. So perfect name, by the way. So yeah, the Good People. Do you want to share a little bit about your first experience and compare it to this year?
Sure. My first experience was last December when I was invited to speak on a panel.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was going to, but I left that with new energy. I had the experience of meeting new thought partners, experts across the field of aging, vendors, consultants. It was really enlightening, and I really think it should be called Great People.
Yeah, there's pretty great people here. So tell me a little bit about Sequoia Living.
Sequoia Living is based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have 4 life plan communities, 3 affordable housing communities, and a broad community services program. We have the oldest operating adult community services program in the nation.
Yeah. Could you, would you be willing to share what do you feel is different about this gathering versus, I'm sure you go to others?
Yeah, the intimacy, the willingness to get really deep into topics. It's a very broad variety of topics, things you wouldn't be exposed to at a bigger conference.
Yeah. What about you guys? This is your first year at Good People. What did you know about it before, and what's your experience been?
I didn't know a whole lot about it. My organization has participated and love it, but I was skeptical. As Kane knows, I asked 1,000 questions about what a supplier would get from the experience. And what I can say is, number one, just like Martha said, it's a great group of people. Kane does a great job of really handpicking people who are willing to be very vulnerable and talk about what's important to them, what they've learned, etc. From my perspective, I always love to hear what the industry is demanding in order to continue to serve our residents. Because as a supplier, that is the way that we continue to expand our solutions and really adjust to what the industry needs. So being educated was absolutely a huge part of why I came.
Yeah, it is a big part. It was part of the conversation that we just had now about when events are very clear about the why,
Mhm.
the who becomes pretty clear,
Mhm.
right? Austin, what about you? Why'd you come here? What's been your experience at Good People?
Sure. Yeah. Really, I'd met Kane previously and did not made timing just didn't work out, but we managed to make it work. And I knew that it was different. And I know that he uses the hashtag no boots.
Yeah.
And so that was good. I think, walking the show floor is always like the dreaded experience.
Yeah.
But really I wanted to get like meaningful conversations out of it. And I think that's what over the last few days have really just every conversation, whether it's, when we're all together or if it's a sidebar conversation, it's always about, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or, hey, we're doing this. And those are really what's going to advance, the care that we're giving to our seniors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Could you share with us a little bit about Journey?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Journey, we operate nursing homes. So we have 22 communities in the Midwest and Southeast. So we're based in Indianapolis, and we actually just started a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
So we're on a big growth path right now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Kane, we've talked a lot about what it's been like, the think tank on my end, Good People on your end. We're going to do our 5th one in December this year. So we're right actually along the same lines. I'm curious if you'd be willing to share with people what you've learned, maybe the wins and falls along the way, putting something like this together.
Yeah, definitely learned a lot along the way. The biggest thing that I learned after year one was perception. I had a marketing team that I was working with that was outside of our industry, and they highlighted a lot of the fun that we were having, a lot of the networking, and a lot of the unimportant things that were happening at the retreat. So I realized the perception can become reality really fast. So we do a lot of education, a lot of content, a lot of sharing of best practices at the retreat, and that's the message that I would like to get across. I also learned that to bring more operators and get more decision makers and more organizations involved, we needed to bring more and more value. So that's where the Good People Foundation got involved and came about.
Yeah. So I didn't know much about the Good People Foundation before, and maybe we can also talk a little bit about where do the funds go once you've raised the money?
So we raise the money and we give back to the organizations that support Good People. So the organizations that come and support us for a number of years and help us raise the money, their foundations receive the proceeds. So we give the checks back to the organizations that support us.
Are most of the attendees here not-for-profit, or is there a mix?
There's a mix, and it's usually like 70-30.
Okay.
70% not-for-profit, 30% for-profit, and it's kind of stayed around those numbers for some reason over the years.
So let's talk about perception a little bit. That was a big theme of my talk here today, and I just put out a survey on LinkedIn asking people to weigh in on their feelings on senior living events. What were your kind of initial feelings seeing some of the responses I put up about the survey? Like why people go, why people are reconsidering. There was a statistic around whether they felt frontline stakeholders, their needs were represented well. What's your gut feeling about some of the responses from our peers?
It really matched what I've been feeling over the last couple of years. I've tried to branch out and go into non-industry conferences for broader exposure. And I think we really need to do a better job at having diverse representation at these conferences and some new topics.
Yeah. It was one of the things that came up in a lot of the commentary in the survey was it feels like the same topics are being recycled over and over again. And then another big part was bring the stakeholders into the room with you. So I'm curious how what are perceptions in your own organizations about when you go to events like this? Or do you think they are?
Yeah, I know that some of the responses are probably similar to what, some people will think is that, oh, you're just having fun, or there's a lot of, hanging out at dinners and fancy dinners that you get to attend. I think that is a perception. And I think that, personally, I've always tried to make sure that you're bringing something back.
Yeah.
You're bringing value back to the organization by attending it.
Yeah.
I know that's a personal goal of mine.
Yeah.
Nicole?
And the same goes for me. Eric and I will be very excited to go back and share with the team who we met, what's important to the industry, so that they understand that what we do provides value to senior living, and it validates what time and effort they put in
Mhm.
to making dual path to continue to grow. So I try to get excited about it so that they get excited.
Yeah.
Can I add
Yeah.
something to that real quick, if you don't mind? One thing that's unique, I think that hit, I think during your conversation, and there was a vendor that kind of talked about how, at a lot of different conferences,
Mm-hmm.
they're left kind of outside looking in.
Yeah.
Right. And this is unique that it's a blend of, you have vendors and providers, and they're learning about what's going on in the industry. And I think that matters for somebody that, to speak the language of, hey, these are the pain points, and not just trying to decipher through that. I mean, so I think that's really unique.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of the comments in the survey that it was a vendor partner who said, let us go to the sessions. So I know there's been a sentiment and a feeling in our industry that for our vendor partners, they feel like they're footing the bill, and then they get ignored in terms of their own needs at the conferences.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think also, no matter where we sit and what role, what type of organization we're in, we're all trying to solve the same problem and the same issues.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we could all work better together, that would be ideal.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like I want more of when I go to events is, what are we doing? What are we trying? I thought that was really good in your session, Austin. You kind of, you wrapped up early enough that you're like, all right, what else is everybody else trying?
Yeah.
And I think that last 10 to 15 minutes actually was really, really valuable to be like, oh, you're trying this with workforce retention, and you're trying that. And I thought that was really, really helpful. Yeah. So going to the Good People Foundation. So last night we had the auction, which is really cool. A lot of fun. Money was raised. I actually won an item. Yeah, it's a silent auction. So, but I'm happy to be able to contribute there. When you go to other events, do you feel that there is a goodwill component to the events that you'd like to see in senior living?
If there are, I am not aware of them.
Mhm.
I think the goodwill comes from just having, just like any event, people that's mission is to improve the lives of seniors, all in the same room,
Yeah.
all in the same venue, all at the same place, being educated about what's best for those people.
Yeah. At the think tank event, I shared it with the group in the room. I want to share it for people who are watching. Last year, we had a family member of a resident in the room with us working on the same
Amazing.
things. And as I shared in the room, it changed the tone of the think tank, that we were not just kind of, brooding over our own genius thoughts. It was like getting real time feedback and seeing the responses from people there. So this year we hope to bring in more people, someone living with dementia, local seniors, nonprofit groups. Hopefully more of them will be represented. So what's next for you, Kane, in terms of Good People? You're going to be on year 5 after this, right?
Yeah, so we've got one more retreat this year. We do 2 retreats a year. We do the one here with the big fundraiser in June in the mountains in Switzerland of America, Ouray, Colorado. And then the other one we move it around. We rotate it in different parts of the country. We've done Scottsdale a couple of times. We've done West Palm Beach. We've done Tempe last December. And we try to get this second retreat in right before all the Christmas parties kick off. So it's usually the first week of December. This year, I haven't announced yet, but we might as well just do it here. We're going to be in Dallas. Good People's going to be in Dallas in early December. So
nice.
We'll have to work around your think tanks.
You're still coming, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll be at the
He's
think tank.
committed to it live.
I'll be at think tank. I'm excited to be there and learn from your team. So
yeah, all good. So a little bit more about the discussion that we had about senior living events. What do you make of all of the smaller things happening? And then there are also companies that are creating their own. I don't know if you've seen them or heard about them, but I think more and more people are kind of eschewing the path of like, I have to go to the same national events, and more of them are, creating these breakouts. How do you feel about that?
I think a mix of both is always going to balance your portfolio with whatever you attend, whomever you listen to, is always the best idea in
Yeah.
my eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Martha?
I agree. I think a mixture, big national conferences, as well as more
Mhm.
smaller, intimate,
Mhm.
Here's
focused.
an interesting question. Did you want to weigh in
Yeah,
first?
I was just gonna weigh in that I think that some of the maybe, you're starting to see maybe even some vendors hosting a
Yeah,
conference.
you are.
And I think, part of that, I think, is that they're trying to become the thought leader and maybe try to give
Yeah.
more education around their area, not specifically to their product.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Really just because as, we operate in 6 states. The track at all 6 states and the national
Yeah.
level is shockingly very similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if
Huh.
you're going to multiple, sometimes you're hearing the same information over and over. So I
Mm.
think they're trying to create an area to bring education and bring value.
Yeah, that's
You
very, very hyper focused, actually. So that was where I was gonna kind of go with the question. You can think about it for a second. If you were to create your own event, your own conference that kind of filled a gap that you see in the industry, or it had to do with thought leadership that you believe in, that your organization believes in, what would be the theme of the event that you would create?
Mine would be how do team members grow within the organization and bringing in line staff, frontline staff to share their experiences and help them talk directly with leaders about what they could do to advance their careers.
Yeah, was somebody made the comment in the session earlier that frontline stakeholders, it doesn't feel like the events of the original events of our industry were really catered to them. It was kind of a C-suites
Mhm.
event only kind of vibe. So I really like that. If it was all just bent on focused on developing people, yeah, I think that's a great track. What would you do, Nicole?
I would love to have, I think one of the biggest challenges on the provider side is what I call vendor confusion.
Hmm.
I would love to be able to lend expertise and have a group of organizations be able to talk to one another about how they have combated that, and for us to be able to provide any consultative help we can,
Yeah.
not from a company perspective, but from a technical perspective,
Mm,
because it's such a big, because we're growing so fast as an industry. There's a lot out there.
yeah.
So if we could provide any type of guidance in that technology journey, that to me would be very valuable.
I love
And you
that.
two can tell me if you think that would be valuable. But
Yeah. It's kind of like the delegate from Dual Path will speak now and share.
well, just
yeah.
yes, just to kind of share and to have them in a room to say, I just encountered that same thing. Yes,
Yeah.
this is a challenge. Anytime you can get like-minded people in a room to exchange ideas, it's always a win.
Yeah. Yeah. Austin, what about you?
Yeah, I think, for me, if there was a theme, I think it's probably going to be very similar. That it might just be that happy staff give the best care.
Yeah.
And really talking about what that looks like and how you can implement it all the way down to the ground floor. And I love the smaller venue and the relationships and the different perspectives.
Mhm.
I think is better than one up at a podium, casting down on the other 400 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been really nice this week over the last couple of days, knowing like, oh, I haven't had a chance to talk to Austin yet, but there's not that many other people. So you talk to someone and then you kind of move forward and you get to really talk through people's thoughts in a way that large conferences maybe miss a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kane, I'm curious about, with the good people, do you have any big ambitious stuff? You don't have to share it right now if you don't want to, but have you allowed yourself to start thinking about that? There seems to be momentum. People are coming to it. It's grown year after year. Are there kind of big ambitious stuff you want to see happen through good people?
I mean, the whole mission and purpose now is the foundation. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost become more than that. It's almost become like what I'm living for and what I'm going to leave behind. So
Mhm.
the Good People Foundation, I plan on it being in our industry when I'm no longer here. So
Yeah.
it's a big thing to me. And I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but
Yeah.
I'm fully behind it. And my wife and I, Allie, who's still crunching the numbers from last night, and we're excited to announce tonight what we raised last night. But
Yeah.
that's the future. And we're going to add a golf tournament. We're going to add more and more. So
Yeah.
we'll be raising money and giving back to seniors in need.
Yeah. I love that. So when we think about what you're going to take back to your team, so I have a notebook full of things from each session. By the way, I thought each of the sessions were great. Even the ones where I was like, what does this have to do with anything? And then the more I sat through, I was like, actually, that really kind of sparked some thinking here. Were there any sessions this week that kind of stood out to you besides your own, besides Austin's or myself's also? But was there anything that kind of stood out for you? And what do you think you're going to do with that when you get back home?
There were many of them. I think some of the vendors that presented, I have some ideas how they could help support our organization
Yeah.
and our goals.
Yeah.
And some of the technology piece is pretty amazing
Yeah.
to hear different technologies when they pitch them.
Yeah. Hearing Eric talk, from Dual Path, it's like, hold on, I need a calculator and a computer. I need to write all of this down so I can map it later. Is that what it's like working with him?
I'm always impressed by the amount of knowledge he brings to any situation. And again, going back to the consultative piece, that's how he approaches everything. And being able to help an organization for them to say, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
That's why I love watching what we do. And again, not from a company perspective, but also the industry itself. If we can help to build something for the future to help these future residents and have buildings be ready and have all of the things that they need to continue to run those buildings, that's a great thing.
Yeah. As we're sitting here, and it's a conversation I've had with some folks, I think Kane and I even had it. There are some things that as I'm hearing it, I keep thinking, man, I wish other people were listening to this right this second. And it's hard to recreate that. Like, it's like telling somebody a joke you heard, but it's not quite, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah.
So it is something I thought about with Think Tank is it might be nice to actually live stream the thing that's happening right this second.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And honestly, your session was very thought-provoking, almost to a point where I thought, should I feel guilty about some of the things that I do year over year?
Yeah.
So if it gives me pause to think about how I spend my time, then you've done a good job.
Yeah, I really appreciate that thought. I think that's such a high value of a trusted group of people. Is like, let's get a little bit uncomfortable with some of these topics. And Martha, I know you didn't say anything during my session, but the entire time I'm looking at you, and I'm just like, Martha's feeling this. She's got fire in her eyes about this topic.
Yeah, so much so that I want to invite you to talk to our leadership team.
Yeah, well,
It's great.
yeah, well, I'd love to come out and do that. I love the session. So Ted Steele. No, it's Ted
Teal.
You're Steele.
I'm Steele. He's Teal.
Steele
Just an extra
and
S.
Teal. Yeah, we got lasers and blazers here. Yeah. Okay, so Ted Teal, he did a session on longevity communities. So it's an area where I've heard pieces of it, but I thought he did a really great job of putting it all together. And he kind of led out with a very thought-provoking thing about how many of us would want to live in our own communities. And a lot of people were like, ooh, I don't know. And so, the feeling that senior living through our own work, through our own branding, has kind of positioned ourselves in the mind of the consumer, that Ted put it in terms of it's a place that people feel like you go to die. And of course, we all have very immediate feelings about that, right? And then he said, well, what if we were the place that people went to like learn how to have longevity and thriving in community? So I thought his session was great, and he gave some practical examples of that too, which was cool. Austin, were there any that stood out for you?
I think that just hearing Anna speak,
Oh man,
the challenge that she's overcame, but I think that there's a piece in there where it was just, she was kind of talking about how, hey, things don't always go as you plan.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think just kind of hit me where it's like, oh yeah, it's probably not, it is okay.
Yeah.
And I think really, if you talk to most people, it hasn't gone exactly how they planned it to go.
None of us.
No.
You know, and I think so for her, I mean, she's a world class climber. And
Yeah.
I mean, I will never be to that level.
Yeah.
It was struggle just coming up the mountain.
I barely walked.
Get to the hotel, like James and I were talking, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to catch my breath here.
We got to really get
But
there
yeah,
before.
but that was just that perspective
Yeah.
of just, hey, it doesn't always go as it's planned, and that's okay. And so now I just have to shift my perspective a little bit, and now I have to navigate what does this path look like for me.
Yeah.
And I just, it was just really thought provoking.
Super memorable. You guys want to talk about Anna?
Yeah, one of her sayings was, "Your best is always changing."
I
And
love that.
You
I
have
love
to
that.
adapt to that, and you can be the best in something else if you're not the best that you were in the past.
Yeah.
Right.
I-
And I think I love when you can walk away from an event having a personal tie to something that someone is saying. There are people out there that not only in their professional life, but in their personal life have had struggles, etc. That is a great person to understand that, you know what, whatever's going on professionally, personally, we'll make it work. So to be able to tie in your personal life as well was, for me, time well spent.
Sure.
I don't know. I think Anna's speaking schedule in senior living is about to get full.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let us share a little bit about Anna Pfeff. Was that it? Pfeff, yeah. So without giving away too much of her story, just for people who are watching, Anna shared a very, very powerful, very emotional mini documentary. I think it's about 20
Raw.
minutes.
Very raw.
So raw. So I was getting nervous watching it next to her also, and I could tell like she's feeling emotions.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how often she's seen it. So let's tell the story real quick so everybody can jump in. So Anna is a professional climber. She's been sponsored by organizations like North Face. She had a pretty catastrophic personal injury in the course of one of her climbs. And the documentary kind of chronicled how she became a climber in the first place. She didn't come from that world. And how much it kind of like enraptured her whole life after a while, that like this was her identity. And then she had this pretty catastrophic injury happen, and then everything that's come afterwards. And that quote that you shared, Martha, about our best is always changing. Man, I just thought about through Bella Groves and Think Tank and the things that I do, our best looks different all the time.
All the time.
And then I actually thought about our residents, and we say this a little bit to our families of, your mom's good day changes every day. Her capacity for a great day is going to change moment to moment sometimes. And we just have to kind of, that's what meeting them where they are actually means, right? So when you come in and see that mom is sad, don't immediately jump towards, why is she sad? Let's make sure she's happy. And instead think about, maybe she wants to be sad right now, right? Yeah. See, I left a comment where everybody was like, okay, yeah, where do we go from that, James? So let's end on this note. So I want to give everybody a chance to chime in here. If you could give other people advice about how they are choosing the events that they're going to go to. I'm sure everybody's, thinking about, how do I make the time? Where do I put my money? If you're the leader of an organization, how do I approve requests that come through? So if you had some advice to share with people as our last thing here about how to choose that strategically, could you offer one bit of advice?
Do you mind if I go first?
Yeah.
I want to go first to be done. I would just say good people and think tank and leave it at that. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I can chime in here. I just think that, you have to know your why, going into any event, or if you're choosing it, I think you said it very well earlier. You said that if you can't steer the ship, become the tide.
Yeah.
I think is what you said. And that resonated, because I've worked in big organizations where it's, the ship's just going to go that direction no matter what you try to do to impede it.
Yeah.
And becoming that tide. So you
we have some of the most phenomenal leaders in our industry that started, let's say, at a community level and have just risen through and become these amazing leaders dedicated to seniors. I like to be in the presence of those people too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So for event creators, it would be important then to say, here's the list, here are the topics, here are the things that we're
Yes.
doing. And honestly, conferences should be polling the greater industry and saying, what are the topics that you really want to know about? And then are there speakers that you'd like to hear? Anna, she's going to get lots of requests from senior living now. I want to know how you met her offline.
She's my neighbor.
Neighbor, okay. What an amazing, what an amazing coincidence. So yeah, for event creators, I think putting out your agenda, here are the topics. And then one of the survey responders said something about pay your speakers. And I thought that was really interesting because in our industry, we often have kind of it's kind of a pretty well-known thing. We don't pay for speakers and they pay in exposure, right? But if you started paying for speakers, you're going to really bring up the quality of the topics that are coming on. And I think a lot of people also share the sentiment that I'd like to hear from people who aren't in our industry. We get to talk to each other all the time.
That's why some of the keynotes
Yeah.
are sometimes phenomenal because they're not in our industry.
Yeah.
They're relevant topics, but they're not directly in our industry.
Yeah. So Martha, what about you? Any tips on how to choose events?
Well, it was
Sure.
something you said, James, today, and it was identify your organizational goals and map the conferences to that. So instead of going to the same conferences everybody goes to every single year, figure out, do you want to focus on technology? Do you want to focus on resident well-being? Whatever it is, pick the conferences that meet your strategy.
Yeah. How cool would that be if there were more collaborations in gatherings where it was like, well, actually, it's very possible with Kane and myself. It's like maybe next year we're talking about, so this year's theme for the think tank is caregiving economy, the care economy. So we want to broaden people's perspectives beyond senior living or senior housing and see that we're a small part of a much larger picture, which is care. The story of senior living is actually the story of caregivers, which is really the story of families. So let's say that were a learning track that we coordinated with the good people and maybe a few other places and said, hey, if this is a focus for you all year, here's 3 or 4 collaborative events where we're going to keep just giving you more and more about how to approach the care economy. That could be kind of cool. Yeah. So I don't know if I gave my, that I'll just say that was my advice, is to echo what you guys said. If you're clear about your strategy, your organizational strategy, and the other thing I said in the session was that other members of your organization should know what you stand for personally, what soapbox you stand for personally. They should know, like, oh, Austin really believes in this, right or wrong, he believes in this. Nikki P, as we've come to know her this week, this is her nickname apparently that we're going to bring into the world. I want your team to be like, Nicole really cares about this, right? Martha really cares about this. And I bet there's going to be a ton of people in your organization that also rise to that occasion as well. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this. And I want to give a shout out to Kane and Allie. Allie's amazing, by the way. You definitely married up. I think we all agree on that. Yeah. So you guys did a really great event. We've got a few more things to do today, right? I believe there's a karaoke thing. I hope nobody sees or hears any of that except for ourselves. So we got a little bit of good people left to go, right? Okay, so let's do
Thank you
that.
very much.
Thanks for joining in,
Bye.
everybody. Have a great rest of your day.